Hi, my name is Dan Lewi. I'm one of the co-founders of the Cure and Action for Tay-Sachs Foundation, and we support families impacted by Tay-Sachs and Sandoff disease in the UK. So we set the group up in 2011 when my daughter Emily was diagnosed with Tay-Sachs at 15 months of age, because at the time there was no advocacy group in the UK or actually throughout Europe providing any support to families.
So my name is Kathleen Flynn, and I am the CEO of the National Tay-Sachs and Allied Diseases Association. We have been in existence since 1957, and we exist to support families, to drive research and to encourage advocacy for Tay-Sachs, Sandoff, which are commonly known as GM2 gangliosidosis, Canavan disease, and GM1 gangliosidosis. We're located in Boston, but we serve both the nationals, the entire country, as well as patients and families from all over the world. Tay-Sachs is an autosomal recessive lysosomal storage disease. There are three different forms or three different onsets of Tay-Sachs or Sandoff, commonly known as GM2. The infantile form, which usually presents somewhere between 3 and 6 months of age. The juvenile onset, which presents typically between 2 and 5 years, 3 and 5 years of age. And then the adult form, which is the late onset form of Tay-Sachs or Sandoff disease. That usually presents in adolescence or even later on in adult years. The infantile and the juvenile form are life-limiting, and the adult form is severely debilitating.
Tay-Sachs is a lysosomal storage disease, and it has three main variants: an infantile, juvenile, and late onset variant. They basically all result in an individual losing the ability to function independently, so they end up in a wheelchair requiring assisted feeding. Many have really uncontrollable seizures and unfortunately leads to early death. So in the infantile form, that normally happens around about 5 or 6. So it's a very cruel disease, and as a parent of a child impacted by it, it was very tough to see the challenges that our daughter Emily went through her short life.
I'm not a scientist, but from what the scientists tell us, it's a difficult disease. It's difficult to penetrate an effective therapy through the blood-brain barrier. And I think that, like many rare diseases, we're a very small patient population, and so perhaps it's not as attractive from a commercial viability perspective as perhaps other diseases are or other conditions are.
So unfortunately, there's no approved treatments for Tay-Sachs disease. We're fortunate that there are companies in this space at the moment doing lots of research and launching studies to find potential symptomatic treatment that may have an impact on the disease as well. So we're very hopeful in the near future there'll be something that really the kids can benefit from, because unfortunately at the moment it's all about symptom management, making them as comfortable as possible, and just to make sure that they have as high a quality of life as possible. Screening is that big question that we always talk about. So we're fortunate there are some screening programs in certain communities where you can go and get screened as a carrier, but unfortunately newborn screening isn't available for Tay-Sachs or Sandoff disease.
I had a poster in the WORLDSymposium this year about engaging patient advocacy organizations in the rare drug development process. And this was basically born out of a desire to advocate for the value that patient advocates and patient advocacy organizations bring to the table when companies decide to invest in research for rare diseases like Tay-Sachs, Sandoff, GM1, and Canavan disease. And the poster itself was not really highly technical, but what it did, in our opinion, was raise awareness to the fact that we do bring value. Advocacy organizations and the patients that we represent bring value to trial design, to even early research. In the poster, we talked about the different ways NTSAD engages the patient community and makes them available to the industry and brings access to industry so that they can learn from the experts, those patients who are living with the conditions day in and day out. So for example, we'll conduct focus groups or participate on patient advocacy boards. We have an industry roundtable that we convene every year. At our annual family conference, not only do we bring together families, and typically there are 80 families who come to the conference, but we also highlight updates on research, and we conduct assessments. We also conduct educational sessions for families, and we bring together the research community, the clinicians, and those patients and families so that they have community. One can learn from the other, and we've been doing that for 47 years, so it's working. In addition to our annual family conference, we also offer the opportunity for families to learn about clinical trials that are undergoing or that might be recruiting. Of course, our role is really to just be that conduit.
The presentation we were given was based on an industry advocacy collaboration that involved us at the Cure in Action for Tay-Sachs Foundation, our colleagues from the US, the National Tay-Sachs and Eye Disease Foundation, and then our colleagues from the NEMA-PIC communities in the UK and in the US as well. So what we've done has been brought together by an organisation called Azavara, so looking for researching a treatment for both NEMA-PIC type C, GM1 and GM2 gangliosidosis. And what they are doing is making sure that the patient voice is heard throughout all of their study design. So they have an advisory board that's brought all of these advocacy groups together, and what we've done is really discuss and collaborate with them on many topics such as formulation, on topics of trial design, of recruitment and retention strategies, and how we can do outreach to families who may potentially participate in the studies in the future. And the presentation we gave was really focusing on, we call it fact checking. So when they're making a decision, what we've been really impressed with them as an organisation is that they make a decision based on the evidence they get, and they take the guidance not just from us in advocacy, but actually from their clinicians and also the direction the company wants to go in. So they're not believing that their decision they make at the outset is the right one, they validate it. And that's why the presentation was around fact checking their decision making. And what's been effective there is we've really given them support on how they can look at their study design, what the endpoints should be, what recruitment ages they should be targeting, how they can also do the formulation, and actually they've implemented many changes that the advisory board has provided. So we really feel that the patient communities have been involved in the development of the study.
The take-home message is that not only are patient advocates and patient advocacy organizations important in the rare drug development process, but it's important to engage them early and often so that if tweaks are needed, they can be made without delay, because in the case of our rare diseases, time is definitely an enemy, and effective treatments are needed immediately. So to engage patients so that they can inform the developers, and not only inform the developers but also participate perhaps in the regulatory meetings, they play a key role, and we wanted to have people take away that message. I think for a newly diagnosed family, one of the most important things is for them to connect with others and to feel that they're not alone. Often they feel very isolated, and I think finding community with an organization like NTSAD or others throughout the world, I think that helps them go through the journey, which is a very difficult one. I think that intervening as early as possible to improve their loved ones' quality of life is important. So, advocating for themselves and their loved ones is another piece of advice I would have. I think participating in conferences like the WORLDSymposium is a great platform for raising awareness to the value that patient advocates, patient advocacy organizations, and patients themselves bring to the rare disease ecosystem. And as I had mentioned in the poster, I do think that engagement often is integral to success.
So for me, the key to any new diagnosis is to know there is support out there. So when my daughter was diagnosed, we were told it's so rare you won't meet another family. Well, that's not true. In today, after she was diagnosed in 2011, now we're in 2025, there are communities all around the world that have been set up, so where you can get the right information, and we're really pro-empowerment, so ensuring that the families feel completely empowered to make the best decisions on care. And the way we do that is providing the right information, and that can be on how you can manage symptoms, how you can deal with things such as schooling, but also how you can look at the studies that are being done for the disease and really making sure they're up to date on all that information. And so with that empowerment, we're seeing better level of care being provided and the kids having a high quality of life, which is really our focus. I think everyone needs to really realise that it's an individual decision, and what one family may do, another family wouldn't. And I think it's understanding the kind of risk reward and the benefits that may come from participating in a study, but also that then comes in the information provided by those organisations developing those treatments. But I have always believed that having a community as a sounding board to be able to be honest how you feel and then get that right information really helps in that decision making. And no one can tell you what to do. You as a family, you know what's right, and that's again something we've encouraged so that families feel very confident that they're making the right decision for them and their family. I think from my perspective of being in advocacy since 2011, it's quite a few years now, I've seen remarkable acceleration in this space in terms of research and companies exploring treatments. We are still not there for our disease area, which is difficult to take as a bereaved parent, but I'm really hopeful that the future is going to change, and the work that we're all doing on working with companies and working with our research teams to accelerate these therapies we'll see the fruits of that labour, and I think it's going to be a really exciting time the next 5 years, to be honest, and to be part of that is a privilege, and also I do this in the memory of my daughter Emily.